What up, young slumlords and ladies? This is Jake Lapp, and welcome to the Young Slumlords podcast, where me and Caleb Henshaw talk our shiz and hopefully help spark the idea for finding your financial independence in this paycheck-to-paycheck world. What's up, guys, and welcome back to episode 4. Thanks, everyone, for, still, the response that we're getting is just awesome. It's not like we're taking over the world with this podcast, but the people that are listening to it regularly and the questions that we've been getting has been really cool. And talking to more people about their financial situations and seeing how we can make that first step. And it's been really awesome. And this week we're actually going to have our first guest on the podcast, and it's Jordan Alderfer. Me and Jordan, we went to tech school for HVAC together, so I've known him for a little over 10 years now, and he's just a really smart dude. He kept doing HVAC and stuff after high school, where during all of this, the learning stages where I've been putting the time in and trying to figure out real estate, Jordan's been doing the same thing with stocks, and it's been just really cool. I'll stop in and, oh, dude, I just made 10 grand today. Or, oh, dude, I just lost 10 grand today. It's the swings are big, but he's really put the time in. And every time I come over, he's got the spreadsheets up and he's reading something, he's listening to something. He has a really good understanding. And a little more into me and Jordan's relationship, when I was first looking at my first rental property, Jordan was living really far away, Bechtelsville or, and I was I would trust Jordan with just about anything. I was he would be a really cool tenant. If he's already renting somewhere, I'd rather have him rent for me. So, I called him when I was the first place I was looking at was a body shop in one unit, a commercial body shop, two apartments above it, and then a single house all in the same lot in Pottstown for $200,000. And I was this is the move. And, after going there, it ended up not being. But right when I was looking at that place, I call Jordan. I'm yo, I'm trying to do this. Would you be down to move in, pay a little less for rent, and be an acting property manager for the place? And he was yeah, dude. And so, when we didn't go through it the first place, he was yeah, wherever you want to go that's closer, I'm down. So I found the place in Quakertown that we settled on, and that day, of settlement, he's yeah, I'm down, I'm ready to go. So he does know some stuff about real estate we'll get into. Just the last year and some change of managing a property and dealing with tenants and stuff like that. But the main reason we have him on today is we want to talk about kind of his knowledge in stocks. And even though it's something that I'm not well versed in, Caleb's more well versed in it than I am. But we're not just a real estate show. You have to get into real estate. We're hoping to help you find financial freedom, and whatever that's from, whether it's selling baseball cards, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever's going to help get you out of that paycheck to paycheck rat race that is accomplishable by stocks and real estate and many other things. So, with that, I wanted to bring Jordan on and have him start, talking about kind of how he got into this first. What was it that was attractive to him about stocks, and how did that, initial process go, and get into kind of where he's at now. So with that, Jordan, what's going on?
Hey guys, my name's Jordan. Happy to be on Jake and Caleb's show. It's an honor. So how I got into stocks was trying to make some money. I didn't feel like shoveling snow. I'm kind of a lazy guy, as in I don't like working super hard. Whatever is the fastest way I can make money and not move off my couch. So that's how I got into stocks. I do HVAC, so I go to many people's houses, many customers' houses. Saw this guy with all his screens at his house. I'm what do you do, man? He's oh, I trade stocks. That's all I do for 2 hours a day, nothing else. I'm how much money do you make? He's oh, I made $725,000 this year.
Jeez.
I'm what? And he's yeah, that's how much I made. And he showed me his screen, all this money. I'm oh my God, I got to get into this. So I got his email, and then I didn't talk to him for a couple of years. And then 2 years later, I emailed him, and he answered right away. He remembered me, and then went out to lunch with a couple of times, and I still email him back. So he's kind of my mentor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's, taking advantage of what you have going on in your life. What's going to get you in that door? What Jordan's going to, 10 houses a day. seeing all these different people and being able to, what do you do? Like, whether it's going to be what he does or not, like asking and, you know, actually being conversational with people. Like Jordan's plugged me with 2 real estate people at this point that like are big time investors in the area that potentially I might be buying deals from. And it's like making those connections are just super important. And I think the whole lazy, like Jordan says he's lazy and doesn't want to make money, but like at the same time, he's like, we were talking about on episode 1, like Jordan saying, oh yeah, the reason I don't want to get into real estate is because I don't want to deal with tenants and shovel snow and cut the grass and stuff. But then like that's what he's doing. I want him to kind of talk on that fact, like, okay, how much work is it actually? Like being the property manager there. Like I still have to go over to the Quakertown place every once in a while for something significant, but it's few and far between where like Jordan's on the day to day. If there's like a bee's nest in the like the wasp nest in the tree next door, like just taking care of that, you know, mowing the grass. Last winter there was no snow. This winter we had a little bit of snow so far, and like I wanted him to kind of talk about that for like a second, but then we want to mainly keep focusing on the stocks and stuff. But yeah, like so like how much work would you say like a month are you actually doing?
Not much, honestly. It's more like they'll text me, ask me some questions like breakers tripped or they locked their keys out of the house. Nothing much. In the summer, mowing the lawn. In the winter, shoveling the snow. Just to have another second eye on the house, so you don't have to come over all the time and get the trash cans out front. Make sure everything's in line. No one's doing nothing sketchy. Everybody's respecting your property.
And that's the thing. Like that's like we're talking about. When a lot of people are like, real estate's not for me because they don't want to be changing toilets every weekend. It's like, that's not what it is. Like the actual workload, if you do your initial like rehab and get things right the first time, like you're not going to be in there every week fixing shit. Like you get good tenants who take care of your stuff, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. So like Jordan's seen that, and
as long as you don't cut too many corners on the initial rehab. I know I bought a super sketchy washing machine just because I was in a huge pinch and just really needed something to get down there. And I paid for it. It broke, and I had to go out and get another one and replace it down there on the weekend and learn my lesson. It's not always the best to get the cheapest option because you could definitely get that headache later in the future. Have you had, I guess I should ask, like, what's your frequency of contact from the tenants there? I know there's only 2 other tenants at that property, but what's the frequency of them contacting you?
So the people in the front house, they never texted me about anything. I think they're pretty much texting Jake.
Yeah, they literally, since they've moved in, what was that, 6 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
They texted me one time because the toilet that we replaced for them broke, and like that was like more of a major thing. Like that's not something I would expect you to come out, buy a toilet and go replace it. Like that was a good thing for them to text me, but other than that, like they don't text for anything. They're pretty self-sufficient, which you can find tenants who are that way. And so you're saying they don't text you at all, but what about the other people in the duplex?
The ones upstairs above me, they text me, but it's mostly because we're more friendly. It's more friendly vibe.
Right.
So it's like, oh, your mail's up front or something like that. It's not really, the only time they text me was because the breaker was tripped in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, they kind of do their own thing.
Yeah. So like, that's like point in case, it's a rarity. Of course you want to expect for things to go the worst way possible. Like you want to be prepared to be coming in and have someone in place for those midnight calls that something went bad, but like you prepare for that, but then you are able to kind of chill out. And the amount that Jordan pays less in rent to do that, for the peace of mind that I get to not always feel like I'm on call, that like if something happens I have to stop everything that I'm doing and go take care of the one toilet that they have in their house. Like it's definitely worthwhile. And like when we move out of the duplex, like my plan is to find someone else who can have a similar role. I know Caleb's doing it here, where more of just a, hey, cut the grass, shovel the snow, and you pay a little bit less in rent. And that's like just having a handy guy.
They're big wins. Like you really get a lot of stress off your plate, not having to worry about like, especially snow shoveling. Like we get in bad winters, you get a ton of snow, and that's just a lot of liability to have to constantly be stressing, during a snowstorm at night, how often are you going out like late in the night, early in the morning to keep shoveling it as it's snowing so it doesn't get too deep that you may slip on it, stuff like that, where it's just like it's kind of like a community vibe, honestly, with having your tenants involved with you and taking care of the house, where, you can do it when, your tenant's unable to do it, or part of the regular lease with them is that they're responsible for taking care of it, and it's just a really, really good deal.
Yeah, for sure. So now I want to cut back and like get more into like kind of Jordan's experience with stocks and like how he came in. So like, he found this mentor, and I'm sure started like studying. Like how did you do that? Like what was your resources for learning, to the point that you're at now?
Pretty much hours and hours of YouTube videos.
Yep.
Like I made a playlist on YouTube with about 200 videos, like 10 minutes each. And then I read a lot of books. I also started Discord with a couple of friends, about 20 of us, and just bouncing ideas off 20 different people helps a lot, because, you can only do so much yourself. So pretty much those are the three things.
Yeah. And like, that's like similar to this podcast is what we're trying to achieve. Like the really nice thing with stocks is the barrier to entry is very low. You can start investing with $10 if you want to. It's easier to play around with money in stocks than it is to play around with money in real estate. So like, we're trying to start that community, that Discord of bouncing these ideas and thoughts around, 20 people's heads too, of like guys who are doing the same type of thing. So I also want to be able to get that playlist from you. And like, if anyone is listening and wants to kind of those resources that are free on YouTube to start, learning, that we could send that playlist their way, because that would be extremely beneficial, I think.
And I want to dig into the mentor as well. I know you'd mentioned kind of in passing that you met up with him and then took a long time to reach out to him again. And then when you contacted him again, it was just a matter of just talking to him and he would just give you information. Did you give him any value, or did you just tell him your story and he was just all on board with helping you get involved? Or like, how did that play out?
So my value was he knew I did HVAC.
Yeah.
And he has a very old heater. So that, that was in the back of his head. It's like anything goes wrong, I have someone to call, which he has used that. And I'm like, dude, I'll come over. No problem. You don't got to charge me anything. Let's just sit down, have a conversation, and give me some of your knowledge.
And that's super valuable. Like bringing that value to the table, just that peace of mind for your heater to share some knowledge with some young guy coming in your house. Like that's awesome.
And that's something to keep in mind. All stock traders have HVAC systems.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's a foot in the door right there. That's really cool. So after you met up with him, did he like provide you resources for going forward, or what was like the next steps after the initial conversations?
So he did. So he gave me a few books, Options for Dummies, great book. He also actually gave me his login, the simplertrading.com. So that's ran by Jim Carter, and they have very great traders. It's a little more advanced, so if you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend it, but great videos on options, which is a little different than stocks, but still he gave me some good resources for that.
So from when you initially met him and then 2 years going forward when you actually reached out, during that 2-year period, is that when you really started like grinding and like learning, or did you go into him like fresh?
So I was grinding and learning, but with stocks and all the information online, there's a lot of misinformation. So it was 2 years of just learning some of the right stuff and some of the wrong stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can get sidetracked easily. So I got sidetracked. One reason I got sidetracked is on stock markets. There's something called indicators for technical analysis. And you can go way out in left field and just completely get distracted and your trading goes to crap. So that was...
So what is an indicator?
So basically it's when you have a stock, you look at a chart and there's these tools that help you predict where the stock's going to go. With all these formulas and stuff like that.
Okay,
it's like just using pattern analysis on the trends of the stock. If it makes a specific pattern, there's a name for every single pattern out there, and the smart technical analysis traders know all the patterns by heart, and they're able to recognize them. And then when they see a specific pattern happening, the odds of it continuing, when they see a pattern starting to happen, the odds of it continuing to follow that pattern are higher than it not following that pattern. So then they bet on that happening. And that's pretty popular for day traders as well. People who just make high volume trades all the time and make small wins off of a lot of trades versus going all in on one stock and hoping to 10x's or something like that. It's just about small gains over time.
Mm-hmm.
So Jordan, when you first started investing, how did that, like, what was your actual like thing? How much money did you put in? What did you put it in? And how did it go? Like, how was that like initial?
So my first step, I downloaded the app Robinhood. I'm laughing. You'll figure out why I'm laughing later. Download the app Robinhood. Put in about $250. Looked on Google, like, what are some good ETFs, and download VOO. So that's basically like SPY, a SPY index, which is basically 500 big companies like Facebook and Google and Tesla all in one. So it tracks that. So that's what I downloaded, and now it's over $300. So if I would have held it, I would have been up.
So when you're saying you put in 250 and now it's at 300, it was at, you put in 250 for how many shares?
That was one share.
Oh, okay. So you would have made $50.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like these stocks are, they definitely range in price, and it doesn't like necessarily mean one is better than another based on the value of it, because you can have splits and breakdowns of like the actual outstanding shares, and like a company like Tesla, when their stock price runs through the roof over a short period of time and they want to have more surface for new investors to get into it, it's limited when the share price is $2,000, because that means the minimum investment money would be $2,000. So they do a split of the stock, break it down into smaller amounts. So don't like look at a number of like how much a stock costs. It's all about the percentages of the movements, because regardless if you have one $2,000 stock or 10 $200 stocks, a 5% move is a 5% move. So at the end of the day, it's just about doing the actual investment and breakdowns, not picking a nice company that you like and hoping it just goes up.
You said like later you'll learn why I laughed about Robinhood. Like, what's wrong with Robinhood?
So that's good for basically buying and holding stocks. If you're trying to get into more trading, they pretty much kill you on not the commissions. They don't have no commissions. They kill you on the fills. So
What's a fill?
When you buy stocks, you have a bid price and an ask price. So it's pretty much where you can buy it and sell it at. They'll give you a terrible fill. So say the stock's trading at $3 and you try to buy it at $3, you'll get filled at like $3.20.
And then when you go to sell it, is it the same type of thing?
Yeah, so you try to sell it at $250, end up selling it at like way less or way more. You know,
that's called the spread. So the difference between the bid and the ask is the spread. So like when you have a stock that's trading at extremely high volume, tons of people buying it all the time, the spread is tight. There's going to be a very little gap between what it's buying for and what it's selling for. And then Robinhood seems to have found a niche business model of maybe, do you think artificially inflating that spread? Do you think? I mean, I don't know. That's what could come of that. But if they are able to move that spread pretty wide, if you buy it and sell it at the exact same time, they take a chunk of that money out. So
yeah, like I'm looking at Apple right now. Their spread is you can buy the stock at $126.90. So that's, if you try to buy it, you can buy it at that price. If you try to sell it, you have to sell it at $126.82.
It's just 8-cent spread.
Exactly.
So yeah, Apple would be a high volume stock. There's tons of people on that. If you get like less traded stock, I'm sure that spread's a lot wider as well. I'm sure you could probably pull one up of, but just something to keep in mind. It's not always what the price that you see on the ticker that you're going to get for it.
Exactly.
So with that being said, for someone starting out who wants to maybe try out day trading, see what it's like, what app or website would you recommend them going on?
So number one, I wouldn't recommend trying day trading at all.
Okay.
Don't even touch it until you're knowledgeable enough. So what I would do is download either Webull, probably Webull. There's Webull, there's Thinkorswim, there's Tastyworks. I wouldn't use Robinhood. Thinkorswim's a little confusing. Same with Tastyworks, that's more advanced. So I would download Webull and just buy and hold a couple stocks. 3 or 4 stocks. You don't have to put much money into it. And in Webull, you can paper trade, which means you can use fake money. So you can I would recommend use fake money, start out a year with fake money, buy Apple, buy Facebook, and then just see how the chart works. Just see how the stock moves every day.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because I remember coming over the one day and you were like, dude, if I did this like fake account, if I would have done a real account the same way, I would have made like 70 grand or something crazy. Like, what was that? Like, what was that actual scenario? Do you remember?
I don't really remember that one. I do so many trades, I can't remember them anymore.
No, I'm sure that, but still, like, that's such a valuable thing. Like, in real time with the real stock market, doing what it does, you can invest fake money. Here's 1,000 fake bucks. Like, try that first instead of putting $1,000, risking it. Try your fake $1,000 and see what it does. Like, if you do your research, you think like, this is going to grow, this is going to grow. Like, you make your investments, and now all of a sudden, oh man, if I would have actually invested that $1,000 and it'd be worth 10,000 right now, like maybe I should actually pull the trigger and put real money into it.
Yeah, paper trading is a really cool concept, and it's just a zero risk kind of a game, honestly, where you can just get that fake money in the market and actually do real research behind your trades, where you can like find actual deals, make them, and then see if the thought process behind that trade was correct or not. Granted, it's the stock market, so you can be completely correct and still wrong at the same time, but It's still something that is a good tool to have to get started.
Because I would recommend that, because you don't want to do what I did. I went full, because how my personality is balls to the walls, full out, like, let's get this done. You can't do that with the stock market, because you'll get slapped across the face, thrown out in a ditch.
And I know that's happened to you. Can you tell us about like your progression, like the good trades you did, the bad trades you did, like where in that first year of you doing this, were you positive? Were you negative? Like how did that go?
So my first year, I was most ignorant, which actually helps a lot in some ways. So I had started with 10 grand and turned it into like 50 G's in about not even a year, because that was about 2018. So we're, again, super bull market. If you're in a super bull market,
it's hard to lose money.
Exactly. So 10 grand, about 50 G's. And then what happens with that is that's not good, because you get overconfident. You're like, oh, I'm the man. I know I just made 50 grand out of 10 G's. I'm feeling it. I'm going to go throw in 20 G's here and turn that into even more. Grand. Yeah. So I put 30 grand into SPY puts, which is put option is you're short selling.
Yeah, break that down.
So that gets a little complicated. We'll just say if the stock's going down, you make money.
Yeah, a short is like you're betting that the stock will go down. It's the back end of it is like you're owning a contract of 100 shares at a specific price point, and you are betting that people will buy it at a higher price after it closes at a lower price. So that difference is the money you make. It's pretty complicated, and these are why you want to dig into some resources to like actually understand what this terminology is, because the stock market is chocked full of very unique terminology. So it's something that you want to spend some time in before actually throwing money into the mix here. But yeah, that's shorts is just where you want to see the stock price go down and you make money off of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how like a bunch of these like bankers and stuff made a lot of money on the big short in 2008, the crash, or totally different.
I'm pretty sure they just got bailed out by the government.
I thought they were betting against it though.
Some people did.
A lot of big corporations, big hedge funds and stuff, they'll basically short options. So they'll sell premium. This is getting really complicated.
Yeah. So we didn't want to get into like super complicated stuff. You know,
Let's get off of options and start talking about stocks.
But all right, how did your $30,000 short go?
Let's say, so it was an option contract and they expire a certain day. So I was down like $4 grand. I'm like, all right, I'm going to average in, which means I'm going to buy more contracts and bring my average price down. So I'm in 10 contracts right at this point, and didn't work out. And next, you know, I'm down 13,000.
Dang.
I sell it for a $13,000 loss, and that felt like you're getting punched in the face.
I literally can't imagine. Like, you work hard for $13,000. That's like, you know, weeks and hours of work that went down the toilet. But like all in all, you're still up with the amount of trading that you did. That was still kind of considered gains from trading in the first place.
Yeah, so my biggest ones, I made like 15,000, like 8,000, 4,000. So it all like added up, and then I lost to 13.
Yeah, gotta play big to win big. Is that?
I guess so.
I switched.
Play big to win big, or to lose big.
Nah, so I don't. So you don't want to play big. You want to play smart. So what I do, I play small to win small, but all the small wins add up to big. you know what I'm saying.
You started doing that within the last year, right? You started
Yeah.
changing your strategy in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing now? What's your kind of strategy? Are you still doing?
So before I was obsessed with day trading, which is like gambling. Now I'm doing long-term holds more, not putting that much risk on the table. So putting $300-$400 risk on the table, cutting at 50% loss. So like $200 loss for like $1,000 gain.
So what's considered like, we're talking about real estate. When we're talking about long term, we're talking about 30 years, 50 years. What's long term in the stock market? Like
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 years, that, from my perspective, that sounds like a really long term for holding stocks. Could you break down kind of like what your current trades look like now and what you're forecasting, like actually how long you're holding them all?
So my current trades, I'm in a lot of solar stocks, a lot of tech stocks. I kind of diversify a little bit, some airline stocks. So I'm pretty much, like I said, I have an IRA, Roth IRA. So technically you can't pull anything out till you're 65. So I'm pretty much just throwing as much as I can in there. Usually the stock market always goes up, but can crash. But over time, it usually, gives you a solid return of, they say, about 8%. So that's the money where I pretty much say, this money's gone. I lost it all. Let me just put it in this account, open up, see what happens.
So what percentage is that? Like what percentage of the money that you're investing is into those really long term?
So only $6,000 a year.
Okay.
Because that's all much you can put in there. So that's not, for me, that's not big of a hit. For other people, that might be a lot of money.
So then the rest, like, what's your other strategies? Like so you have $6,000 a year going to long term. What else do you have, like, on a weekly scale or a monthly scale, or like, a couple year scale? Like how do you kind of break that down?
So then for the monthly scale, I usually hold them minimum 30 days to about 90 days. And that's because time is your friend. So the longer you can hold stuff, the more you won't get destroyed. So follow the trend 90, 60 days out. Once you're up, I take my profit, usually about 50%, and then I take my profit, cash out. And then that takes a risk off the table, and you can use that money for something else.
Especially when we're in some bull markets like we're in now. There's green across the board. There has been this whole year after COVID happened. And have you invested in any bear markets before, or has it been the last couple of years you've been doing this? What's the greater scheme look like as far as the market and economy?
So when I was investing, it was bull market. So 2018, 2019, 2017, flying every day, open up green. Like I had investing in AMD when it was $9. Now it's $90. Tesla at $250 a share. Now it's $800 pre-split. So it's like what, $3-4 grand technically.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Now, Tesla had a wild ride. Not sure what pumped that up. I don't think anyone knows what pumped that up, but Elon's pretty cool about it.
That was insane. Like no one saw anything like that. And like I said, today's a different day. So if you talk to older people back in the day, the market's never moved like it moves now. Now with everybody can access their phone, pull up before, trading is calling your broker, mailing stuff in, using dial-up internet. Now it's completely decentralized. Anybody with a cell phone now can throw some extra money they have into the market and just keep liquidity up, keep the volume up on these stocks. And that just, the more people in the game, the faster it moves. So that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
So now going to like talking to people who've never invested anything, they're looking to just get started, besides for, your YouTube videos, kind of based on your, wins and losses, like what would you think to be like a good strategy, or what would you advise to someone who's brand new? Like what should they be doing?
Number one, I'm not a financial advisor, so don't take anything. This is all advice. But I would recommend just stick with the basics. So buy and hold stuff. Just go from there. And it's because, like I said, there's so many different doors you can go down. So the easiest thing is to buy and hold, and then just monitor the stock.
So like at that point, like what % of your savable income, like the money that after all your expenses are paid, you're left with this amount of money each month, how much of that would you advise someone who's new to invest, and how much do you personally invest out of that savable money?
For new stuff, I wouldn't invest more than like a car payment. So a couple $100, because either you're going to throw away the car payment or you're going to throw it away in the stock market. And like I said, the stock market nothing's guaranteed, so you can end up losing it all. So you got to be fully comfortable with walking out with nothing.
Yep.
It's not a get rich fast kind of game. It's not going to work like that. You might get lucky a couple times, but eventually you'll get slapped in the face. That's just how it works.
Yeah. So for you now that you know what's going on, how much are you investing per month, like out of your savable income?
Personally, as much as I can. So I keep about like $4,000 in my bank account. Everything else is in different brokerage accounts. And like I said, I went through that phase of where you learn, you lose a lot, but you keep breaking through it, and then now you start to slowly progress. But it takes years.
Yeah.
It's nothing that you can't learn it in a summer. You can't learn it in 2 years. You can't learn it in 3 years. I say 5-8 years takes to actually really learn it.
I want to bring it back to where we started this conversation, where you had initially met up with that mentor and like got some information or a game plan from him. How did that look like after he had mentioned to you to start learning from all these resources? What were like the next steps you took after ingesting all that information? What did you do after you learned all that?
So like I said, Simpler Trading is the website that he gave me. So I went on that website, read a lot of the resources, and then I tried a lot of their strategies out on paper trading. And I'm still doing that because with the stock market, there's so many different strategies, so many different, you can talk about it all day long.
That's a good point. Yeah, learning never stops on that. So definitely shouldn't ever stop your paper trading, especially with all the different techniques available to investors to use, whether it's fundamental analysis, the underlying stock, is it a good company, is it a bad company, or you don't care at all about the companies and you just look at the charts, and if you see a special pattern, you know to buy, you know to sell. So that's definitely a good idea. When you learned that and you felt confident enough to actually put some money in, what were like the first steps you took actually buying into the stock market?
I did it very dumb. So I went all in. So I threw in first trade. I threw in 10,000 in AMD, and that almost tripled. So I threw in like 10 grand at $9. It went all the way to like $50, and I cashed out a couple thousand. And then I also threw another 10 grand into you guys, which is delisted from the stock market. That doubled. That turned 8 grand. So I started off great, but like I said, then did the SPY puts, and then that destroyed me.
Wow. From that first slap in the face you took, what were the biggest takeaways that you got, like going forward?
That this is pretty much a job. It's not. You have to have a game plan. Like with real estate, you need a game plan. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know your expenses. You can't just wing it, because winging doesn't get you anywhere. You really need to be disciplined with everything. Research a lot. Just sit down, be like, set your goals, and that's how you got to do it.
How often, like how much time every day or average per week are you spending, like either researching or like analyzing the deals on the market and whatnot? Like how much time are you personally putting into this?
Personally, every hours. So it's at work, on my phone, in the basement, in the customer's house, on Bluetooth headset, listening to stuff. It's every day. You can say it's addictive, but it's what I like to do. So that's all I do every day. And let's say if I put the work in now, like I saw that guy, my mentor, he'd been doing it for 30 years. I talked to him last month. He's like, I made 150 grand this month.
Wow.
And literally from 2 hours a day at work. It's just people don't want to put in that 5-year grind.
I'm sure he grinded 80-hour weeks, 120-hour weeks for a while to get into the game initially. And especially if he probably was in back when you had to call brokers to make trades, before you could do it right from your cell phone.
And it's more than like, you have to be into it. So if you're just going to buy and hold, nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to be a stock trader, you really have to be into it, because you can't stare at charts and read books and do all this stuff if you're not into it at all. It's just not going to work.
100%. And it's the same with real estate. Like, I was talking to my dad who listens to the episodes, and he's like, I can see this being hard for some people to listen to. Like, you guys just like breaking down numbers and breaking down properties, and to someone who's not really vested in it, it's hard to listen to. But when you actually have that like goal and that passion towards something, whether real estate or stocks, like it's interesting. Like me and Caleb spend hours and hours and hours listening to real estate stuff. Jordan spends hours and hours and hours. Like we treat it the same way. You need to want that and like have that goal. So like, Jordan, like what is your goal? Like with doing these trades, like eventually, it's to make more money, but like what is like step by step planned out? Like how is your goal and like what are you doing to get there?
So with the goals in trading, for me, I had to be careful, because if you become too attached to certain goals, like I was for a second. You start to beat yourself up with it. So I'm like, I want to make this much money, do this. Because with the stock market, nothing's straight up, and it's all up and down and around. So you got to be careful what your goals are. So my goals pretty much are just keep learning and just keep learning. There's not really a money goal. There's not really, the money will come kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's like brings up an analogy I thought of, and I believe I read it somewhere a long time ago, but when you start down a path or a journey or a quest or a business venture, you start with A, and as you're working down A, you start gaining more perspective information that you never would have gotten without it, and you find, B, something that you never would have seen without starting on A. You work on B for a long time, and you start getting more perspective, more knowledge, and then you stumble upon C, something that is exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, and that you never would have known if you hadn't have taken those first couple steps in the beginning. And it just kind of like opens up your mindset that putting effort into something and actually going down and getting involved pretty deep on a specific subject opens doors into new things that you never would have saw if you sat on your butt on the couch watching TV all day.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of changing the topic, but Jordan, you've seen kind of what it takes to be a property manager. Like, you're renting now at this point, and it's an expense. Like, we've talked about it a million times. Like, even as the landlord who doesn't want to lose a tenant, especially someone who has the responsibility of Jordan. But like, I would rather you succeed and me figure it out with someone else than you rent from me forever. So like, do you have plans? I know we've talked about it, but just like for the podcast sake, like, what are your plans in like the next couple of years? Do you have any interest in real estate? Do you have any like aspirations to do something along that nature? Or are you more comfortable with the stocks and that interests you more and you want to stick with that more?
For the future, definitely I'm interested. I could definitely see myself buying a duplex. Or I was talking to my one stock buddy. He does adult foster care. So you buy a bunch of single family, 1-story houses, and you put exit ramps in there and make it real, safe. And then you have older people stay in there and you have nurses and stuff. That's something I think I'd like to do. Yeah,
Jordan came over the other day. We were talking about that, and like the returns that this guy in his Discord was getting is just like way better than what we're getting. There's definitely more work involved in it, and you have initially like more expenses and you got to hire people and it's a bigger deal, but like it's a really interesting strategy that I would definitely be interested in getting into myself at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never thought about that before. Like assisted living, like home care, the like retirement communities make a killing. Like if you look at actually how much they're charging these people, if you can cut that in half, that is still way more than any tenant would ever pay for that single floor ranch or whatever the house is. So that is definitely an interesting strategy. Personally, I know I'm going to be looking more into it myself, because if you can provide some good and safe home spaces for people who can't support themselves on their own, that could be a win-win for everybody.
I'm about to open it. Crazy door that everyone's been talking about, cryptocurrency.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh, Jesus.
So Caleb actually got me into this in like 2017, and like Bitcoin going up recently, like I just cashed out a decent chunk off of a very small investment made back in 2017. And like, I know Caleb has his thoughts on it. I know Jordan has his thoughts on it. Like being a knowledgeable investor, you hear like everyone's talking about crypto, it's like, oh, you can make $1,000 in a day just because it goes up and it just never stops. But like it does, and it crashes, and like it's super volatile. I'll start with Jordan. Like, Jordan, what are your thoughts on crypto? Like, do you have anything invested in there? Like what's kind of...
So I have about 2 coins of Ethereum. So a lot of money in there.
Yeah. So that's translating to like around $2,000.
Yeah.
Right
24.40 right now.
Yeah.
So that's the money I put in where like, okay, I'm comfortable losing all this.
Yeah.
But if it goes up, I'll cash out.
Yep. And that's like, when we're talking about this stuff, like the crypto, especially if you don't understand it, Caleb has a really good understanding of it for something that's so hard to understand. But like for someone like me, it was like in 2017, it was like, okay, $500 is what I put in. I was like, if I lose this, I won't lose sleep over it. It's not a big deal. There's potential for a big win, whatever, I'll take the risk. And I think that's kind of the the gist you get from anyone, it's like only put in money that you're actually comfortable with losing all of it. You know, where stocks, you can train yourself, learn, and like become very knowledgeable to mitigate that risk. In the crypto, you can do the same, but to an extent. So Caleb, kind of like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so like a backstory, like back in 2017, I was sitting in that 1 year of community college that I'd signed up to do initially, and I was in my economics class on my laptop, just bored as hell, looking at Reddit, and I found a post about a new cryptocurrency that came out. I'd heard of Bitcoin before over the years, back when it was only a couple $100. At the time, it was like 99% used by criminals, and it just didn't have any allure to like as an investment vehicle, just because it was so volatile and it had kind of a bad rap to it. But then there was a new cryptocurrency that was started in 2014 by Vitalik Buterin called Ethereum, and it was just the next step above Bitcoin. And if you listen to episode 1, you know, like my background is very technical, and it's just something I'm extremely interested in. I do it in all my free time, just trying to understand more and more. And when I saw this, I just started reading the white paper, trying to understand what the technology was behind it. And it's honestly like, if you were at the point where you could understand the technology side of it, it would blow your mind. And it blew mine, just totally destroyed my mind. And I immediately spun up some trading accounts and just started buying as much of Ethereum as I could afford. I didn't have a whole lot of money at the time. I started spending so much money I couldn't even buy gas, and I had to scrape change jars to be able to get to work. But it was just something that I knew was going to be the future. Maybe not specifically Ethereum, but this new wave of technology 100% is never going away, and it'll only get better. And it's like, a brief breakdown would be that it's a distributed computer. So everybody has a computer in their pocket. They all own their own computing power. And this is an entire system that is broken down with no one in control of it. There's no central power. There's no one who has the rights or the authorities to make any decisions without the entire group as a whole buying into it. And with how things have been going with specific technology companies making certain decisions to censor certain people, questions have now been even more raised onto, our central authority such a good idea? But regardless, with no one in charge of the money, it leaves it up to the people using it to make these decisions. And it's extremely secure. The amount of computing power required is so far in the future, you can never even imagine breaking it. On top of it, with Ethereum, you can build computer programs on top of it under the same architecture. It's all separate and no one's in control of it. So yeah, it's a hard thing to grasp. And going forward with this philosophy, you're going to have entire platforms similar to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube that has no one in control of it. So the censorship rules, the controlment, like using people's data to make money off of them, will be all in control of the people using it. So in the future, I think it's going to be extremely valuable. In the short term, it is a complete speculation. People are going crazy buying this stuff up like madmen without any understanding of what's underlying it because of the hype train. So beware, it can move 10s to 20s to 30% in a few hours, 24 hours a day. You can get slapped in the face waking up in the morning after making a trade that night before. So definitely don't put in more than you're willing to lose. I personally have seen my own investments account losing almost 6 figures in a few days. So it's something it's something you've got to get familiar.
It's literally crazy. He's talking about back, what was it, 2018?
Yeah, 2018, there was a nice little bust. And
the same thing that's happening right now. It very similar. It came up pretty fast. The hype train came on board. Everyone bought because they thought it was going to just keep on going.
Yeah, to the
and
moon.
And then it
Ride the
tanked.
hype.
Yeah, it tanked. So all the whales cashed out when it hit the all-time high of around $23,000 for Bitcoin specifically. And with the crypto community, everything hinges currently off of Bitcoin as the primary cryptocurrency. So when that moved, everything else followed with it. So I've felt that feeling of getting slapped in the face. Granted, like I didn't really need the money at the time. So, it was something I could live with. I've made plenty of money off of it. So it wasn't an all loss. I know in the future, again, it's the technology is still there. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, if you're just trying to jump on to get rich quick for some quick gains, you can get slapped real hard. So I would say, if you do want to get into it, throw a couple of bucks in, hold it for as long as you can, because these things move really fast. The reason why there's such a hype train right now on Bitcoin, again, is because this is the second time it's happened. So back in 2017, when it went from around $800 to $1,000 per Bitcoin to $20,000, it hit the news cycles. Everyone was talking about it, and everybody called it a criminal currency because it was primarily used in the origin days to buy things illegally online. Technically, it's one of the worst systems to use to do illegally. Its history is recorded permanently with no way to ever remove it. So if you ever use it to do something illegal, it's just a matter of time before they find out. It is the worst currency to use to do things illegally.
What is a good currency?
Monero.
What's it called?
Monero. It's a completely anonymous cryptocurrency. You can never find out.
How do you spell that?
Monero. Yeah,
We're not condoning any illegal behavior.
No, illegal behavior is illegal, so don't do it. Regardless, I would have to be hesitant on anonymous cryptos because as soon as they become unanonymous, they are worth $0. But Bitcoin itself became popular because of its price going up. So if you buy high, get ready to sell low. So don't look at this as a get rich quick scheme, but look at it as something, if you can understand at least a bit of the technology, it can be worth a lot of money in the long term.
Yeah, so Caleb kind of, when he first talked to me about it, I gave him $500. We split it up kind of with Ethereum, Bitcoin, couple things here and there, and I had no idea what it was about. I was like, yo, bro, I don't get it, but I know you're making money off of it. Can you handle $500 for me? And he was like, yeah, dude, sure. And then as it, it came up, I was like, oh, sweet. And then it came down a little bit. I put a little more money in. And then with this last spike, I pulled out all the Bitcoin. I left the Ethereum and the other stuff sitting in there still accruing. But, tell me if I'm wrong. But for someone who doesn't understand what a Bitcoin is, it's like, okay, yeah, what is this fake funny money business, computer money? My understanding is based on kind of things that you've told me and, other stuff. It's it's a big blockchain that's a bunch of, it's just every Bitcoin is rewarded to cracking the blockchain, finding imperfection or breaking the code in some.
I can actually break it down a little bit simpler. It's the blockchain gives it security. So there's a massive group of people running the Bitcoin algorithm on their machines. It's extremely intensive to run this. People have designed computers primarily entirely just to run this algorithm. So you have a group of people using more electricity than the country of Nigeria running Bitcoin on their computers spread across the entire planet. And they all agree the current blockchain, it is a chain of records. So like a ledger, you have a document with the list of transactions that happened, and it points to the last one, and it has a pointer to the front one. So it's a line of blocks. Each one agrees that it's the current state. So if you try and counterfeit it, it won't line up, and it's impossible to counterfeit it without everybody agreeing on it together. So it's pretty difficult to do that. Pretty much impossible. And that's what a blockchain is. Everybody talks about it like it's some fugazi, fairy dust magic word, but it's literally just a line of records agreeing with each other. And what Bitcoin is some anonymous person in 2009 came up with this piece of software that used blockchain to create a scarce amount of just digital numbers called Bitcoins, 21 million of them, and we're making them slowly. You run a lottery on your machine, and you have millions of people all run it together, and they crack it. They win the lottery. They get a Bitcoin. It splits between all the people who ran it together, and they get made that way. at the end of the day, it's not super important to understand like how it happens, because most people aren't really going to be mining Bitcoins anytime soon. But as far as how it goes, it's extremely secure. Nobody can jump onto it, and there's no one in charge because everyone's in charge of it. So the Bitcoins themselves are just arbitrary numbers that can get broken down to the 8th decimal point. So if anyone's like, I don't have, $35,000 right now to buy a Bitcoin, you can buy $1 worth right now easily. You can buy less than $1 worth. So it's something you can get into, but the actual security of it is so well defined. It's used by all encryption through militaries, bankings, and all that. So it's not something you got to worry about getting cracked anytime soon. It'll only get better as well going forward.
So if you're interested in any stocks that relate to the blockchain, Mara and Riot are both Bitcoin mining companies.
So they're on the NASDAQ that you can trade okay.
So if you're kind of sketched out about investing in Bitcoin, you can trade in these sketchy companies that mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, no one's going to beat the Chinese for that stuff, just so you know. They got the cheapest electricity and the cheapest hardware, the two things required for mining Bitcoin. So
we all love cheap.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So you said that there's 21 million Bitcoins. Are they all already spent? Are there still people mining it?
We're like 90% there. We're at like 20 million or
so
something. So
once that hits its capacity, once they're all out there, then it's pretty much like a finite good, like traded almost like a precious metal.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll be entirely deflationary. So without any creation of a currency, the current set in existence will only get more valuable over time as more people buy in to the network. So the biggest problem with deflationary currencies and using that to back your economy on it is that if you get a loan of a specific amount of Bitcoin and in 2 years it triples in value, you will never pay that loan off because your loan constantly goes up in value. So personally, I really doubt that Bitcoin will ever be used as an actual currency. It's a beautiful medium of exchange for value. Nothing is as fast as Bitcoin is for going country to country, other side of the planet for transferring money. But yeah, once it hits that 21 million, it'll just only go up. Granted, yeah, you can buy some now and hope it goes up and just over time, hold it for 5-10 years and make a lot of money. But yeah, it's not like an actual, like a really useful currency in the long term.
So for someone like seeing the hype, doesn't want to miss out, they want to throw a couple $100 into it, how would they do that?
Easiest way to do it is just get the Coinbase app on your phone. They have higher fees because they're so easy. Gemini is another one. They have much lower fees. The US government did a crackdown of regulations on the crypto market, regulated it as a security. So all these companies require the same similar things as like TD Ameritrade or Schwab and all those other stock investment companies. They require you to verify your ID and stuff like that. So if it asks for that, you give them that information and then you can just hook up your bank account and just start buying crypto.
Cool. Yeah, so sell everything that you own, take all your money and put it into Bitcoin.
Get a second mortgage.
Yeah, take out a second mortgage on your house and just buy Bitcoin because you buy high and you sell low, and that's how you make money in this world. So, all right, with that, like to kind of wrap us up, going back to Jordan, like to both you guys, like for someone who's listening, wants that first actionable step to getting started in either, crypto or the stock market, what are some good books? What are some researches? I know we talked about like the paper investing.
Yeah, paper trading. Yep.
Paper trading. I think I'm going to start actually doing a little bit of that myself just to familiarize. Like I've got a mutual fund I contribute to. I've got my Roth 401k that I contribute to, but those are just slow, long-term accounts that I am interested in learning more. And like, for someone who maybe isn't that interested in stocks, but is it interested in real estate, like just creating the capital gain, like the gains to actually get into real estate in a shorter term, what would you guys suggest for that new guy?
So what I would do is look up the website FinWiz. It's a great tool for charting and breaking down volume of stocks and stuff like that. You can go on Investors Business Daily. They'll break down news and articles. Some books I recommend is Technical Analysis Using Multiple Timeframes by Brandon Shannon. Also Charting and Technical Analysis by Fred McAllen, and then Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. Those are like the good starter books to read. They're not super long.
Nice. Do you listen to any podcast? Are there any other like podcasts that talk about this kind of stuff for beginners?
So yeah, Chat with Traders on YouTube by Aaron Fifield. He takes on a bunch of very successful traders, just interviews them, tells them their story. So definitely check them out.
Awesome.
Yeah, so there's a big problem with cryptocurrencies, and because they're so new, nobody has any idea what they're doing with them. There are some whales in the game who control the market as far as like majority of the volume, like actually most of the trades happening. So I would say your best bet is just to get yourself familiar with how they actually work, to see if you can possibly even slightly understand the technology behind them, because you can never like use any of the stock trading, like the technical analysis and other methods on these cryptocurrencies, because they're so volatile that a pattern may start happening and then it'll just explode. So I would recommend, once you do understand and you believe this could be the future, just take a couple of bucks each week, each month, and just start buying some cryptocurrencies. Do not watch the tickers. Do not refresh your phone every day looking at the prices, because it just goes crazy. And you can really like get yourself worked up and sell early if it crashes low, which is the worst thing to do. You know, you want to buy low and sell high, not the opposite. So, you know, put a couple of bucks in that you can throw away, forget about it for a year or two, and you'll be making a lot of money.
You know what's funny, Caleb? Me and my stock buddies, since we do stocks and the market closes at 4, they're up on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays now trading Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The same as, and they're trying to use like the stock technicals, and it doesn't work at all.
That's hilarious. Actually something that really like took me a little bit to get used to, because I started learning stocks a long time ago, got bored with them, went into cryptos, and it was just chaos and madness. And I'm like, this is great. And then after a while, I'm like, I need some actual traditional value building here. So I'm going to go back to stocks. I'm like, the market closes? Like, that's so boring. But yeah, it actually is a really good thing the market closes so you can sleep at night.
That's awesome. And, you know, so with that, guys, you know, thanks for listening to another episode. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be, you know, doing our same deal analysis, getting into all that good stuff. So
if you have any questions, you can just DM me, Instagram, Jordan Alderfer.
Spell that.
ALDERFER, and Jordan, JORDAN.
Sweet. Thanks again, brother, for coming out today.
No problem, man.
Yeah, it was nice having you on, man.
Yeah,
it was
seriously.
a good little refresher. I'm sure some people are more focused on real estate, but if anyone is interested in doing something with a little bit less sweat equity than doing your own rehab on a property, stocks can be that path forward. So definitely reach out to Jordan if you got some questions. I'm sure he'd love to answer you and send you some resources to learn. But with that, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.